Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about Ukraine joining the EU because that process is underway. It's been underway for a while, but it seems like it's about to start speeding up very, very quickly. Now, initially, when this first came up and Ukraine first really expressed interest and the EU was like, okay, they gave them a list of things that they had to do. These are things that you have to clean up if you want to join our club. And the statement says that they've completed 90% of it. I don't trust any number that ends in zero. That's probably a made up number. The point that they were trying to make was that they were moving along very well. There are still 4 areas of concern, and the expectation is that they move through those very, very quickly. In fact, the expectation is they're going to be done by the end of March. So it's moving quickly. Those 4 areas are instituting something to protect minority languages. I know for Americans that sounds really weird, but most countries in the world understand that people from other countries or other ethnicities, they might speak a second language and nobody gets mad that they have to press 1. So there's that. And then they need a law that will help limit the power of the oligarchs. It's an anti-lobbying law, a little bit stricter than the one that exists in the U.S. It's not going to be a huge issue. You know how effective it is in the U.S. Then they need to fix a law when it comes to transparency, when you're talking about the assets of public officials. They need to fix that. And then they need to bulk up on their anti-corruption efforts. If you have been following the anti-corruption efforts that have been going on in Ukraine, that may sound strange. It's not necessarily that they're not doing it. It's more about how they're doing it. To put it into a purely American context, Ukraine basically assembled the untouchables for corruption and sent them out to take care of it. And they have, you've seen the reports of the arrests, or people getting fired, removed, all kinds of things. It appears that the EU wants that a little bit more formalized and sustained. They more of a wider agency to deal with it. And that's it. That's all that's left, from what I can tell. So the expectation is that they'll have that done by March, and at that point, it will move very, very quickly. This has prompted a lot of questions about why the EU is suddenly moving so quickly on this. My guess is that strategic planners in Europe understand what we've been talking about when it comes to how important Ukraine is to Europe. And there's probably added urgency because they're concerned that the U.S. is going to get distracted because, somebody's jingling shiny keys and U.S. support may waver. So they want to start that process. And the European Union is not really, it's not a military thing. It's an economic thing. But the idea is to bring Ukraine in to the EU, get them more formalized, get them part of that club so they don't end up back in the USSR. That's the plan, because long term, Europe needs Ukraine. When you are talking about a few decades down the road, the breadbasket that is Ukraine, it's incredibly important for European stability. They're gonna need it. And this is a way of firming up those ties. It would also probably help if the U.S. does get distracted and support starts to waver. It would probably help domestically to be helping a member of the EU rather than this country that isn't part of the EU and isn't part of NATO. So that's the reason that you're seeing this new push that's It's been there for a while, but it's starting to take on a little bit more prominence, especially in U.S. coverage, because we almost never talk about this kind of stuff. It's because of the importance of getting this process started to bring them in for long-term strategic planning. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.